Hello, sleepy soul. The night is quiet, the world is asleep, and something is waiting in the dark. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel and write your country and current time in the comments. Now listen carefully. I took the night shift at Walmart because sleep had become useless. That sounds dramatic. It wasn't. Sleep was just another room where Ethan could still find me. Even after I moved 3 states away. Even after I blocked his number, deleted our photos, changed my email, and stopped using the playlists we made together. He still lived in the quiet parts, in the second before I opened my eyes, in the reflection of dark windows, in the way I apologized when someone else bumped into me. So I moved to a town that smelled like rain, gasoline, and pine trees. A town with 1 Walmart, 1 community college, 2 diners, and a main street that emptied by 9. I rented a studio above a closed insurance office. The walls were thin. The heater clicked all night. Neon from the pharmacy sign across the street bled red through my blinds and made my ceiling look wounded. At first, I liked that. A different wound. A new one. The Walmart sat at the edge of town, beside a wet highway and a row of pine trees that looked black after sunset. At night, the parking lot lights buzzed over puddles, turning the asphalt silver. Shopping carts rolled by themselves when the wind came hard enough from the road. My job was simple. Stock shelves. Break down boxes. Keep moving. Do not think. The overnight crew had a rhythm. Pallets rattling. Box cutters snapping open. The distant beep of scanners. The low electric hum of refrigerators. Tires hissing outside in the rain. Old pop songs leaking from ceiling speakers with no emotion in them. Then there was Jonah. He worked electronics, mostly. Tall, quiet, soft-eyed. The kind of person who moved like he was trying not to scare anyone. On my first night, he found me in the stockroom holding a box of extension cords, staring at a label I could not process. "You're new," he said. I nodded. "First overnight shift? Is it obvious?" "Only because everyone looks haunted their first week." I laughed. It surprised me. He handed me a scanner and showed me how to read the location codes. No flirting. No pressure. Just patience. "Don't let this place get personal," he said. I thought he meant the job. Later, I understood he meant the building. The first time I saw the aisle, it was 2:17 a.m. I remember because my phone buzzed in my vest pocket. Unknown number. No message. Just the time glowing on the screen. 2:17. I was pushing a cart of fishing line and camping lanterns towards sporting goods. Rain tapped the roof in a soft, endless rhythm. Somewhere near the front, a register beeped for no reason. Between hardware and sporting goods, there should have been a narrow walkway with a yellow spill station and a stack of blue storage bins. But that night, there was an aisle. Not a shadow, not a gap. A full aisle, brightly lit, perfectly stocked. I stopped with both hands on the cart. The sign above it said, seasonal. But seasonal was on the other side of the store. This aisle smelled wrong. Not like Walmart. Not plastic, cardboard, floor wax, and old coffee. It smelled like dust, warm cereal, raincoats drying by a heater, childhood. On the left shelf sat a row of cereal boxes I had not seen since I was 8. Honeymoon Crunch. Discontinued. My dad used to buy it when my mother worked doubles, and he had no idea what counted as breakfast. Beside it were toys. A purple handheld game with a cracked corner. A stuffed rabbit missing one eye. A cheap snow globe from a highway gas station in Ohio. My snow globe. The one I lost the year my father died. My body went cold before my mind understood why. I stepped closer. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Too loud. Too steady. At the end of the aisle hung a jacket. Brown corduroy. Faded elbows. A small tear near the cuff. My father's jacket. I knew the tear because I made it when I was 6, pulling on his sleeve in a parking lot, begging him to carry me. I backed away so quickly the cart hit a shelf behind me. A metal clang cracked through the aisle. The lights flickered. I blinked, and the aisle was gone. Only the spill station. Only the blue storage bins. Only hardware bleeding into sporting goods like it always had. Jonah found me standing there with one hand pressed to my chest. "You okay?" he asked. I wanted to tell him. Instead I said, "I think I need coffee." He looked at the empty space between the departments, then at me. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Coffee helps." I wanted to believe it was exhaustion. I wanted to believe grief had finally become visual. Maybe I was overthinking. I told myself it made sense. Night shifts ruin your body. Trauma ruins your memory. Fluorescent lights do strange things. Old pain can make an ordinary shelf look like an altar. The next day, I walked the same area in daylight. Nothing. Hardware. Bins. Spill station. Sporting goods. A mother argued with her son about fishing hooks. An old man compared batteries. A toddler cried near the coolers. No hidden aisle. No smell of cereal. No dead father's jacket. That afternoon, I sat in the cafe across from campus, watching rain stripe the windows while soft jazz played through a cracked speaker. My phone buzzed. A dating app notification. I had downloaded it at midnight the week before and regretted it immediately. A match named Caleb. His profile said he liked old bookstores, black coffee, and people who notice small things. His first message said, "You look like someone who hates Honeymoon Crunch, but misses the person who bought it." I stared at the words until my coffee went cold. Nobody knew that. Nobody. I deleted the app, then reinstalled it 10 minutes later. The message was gone. So was Caleb. At work that night, I asked Jonah if the store had ever been remodeled. He paused with a box of phone chargers in his hands. "Why?" "Just curious." "That's never just curiosity here." I waited. He looked toward hardware. "There was a fire," he said. "Years ago, before I worked here. Old layout got changed after that." They sealed off a chunk behind sporting goods and receiving. Sealed off. Maintenance space. Storage. Old offices. Nobody goes back there. "Why?" Jonah's face changed. Not fear exactly. Recognition. Because Walmart says there's nothing back there. At 2:17, I went looking again. Rain hammered the roof. The whole store seemed to breathe under it. Somewhere near Garden Center, a door banged in the wind. The freezers hummed. My scanner beeped every few seconds, bright and indifferent. Between hardware and sporting goods, the aisle was back. This time there was music, not from the ceiling speakers. A small melody. Tinny. A song from a toy piano. I walked in because fear is not always a wall. Sometimes it is a hallway. The shelves held pieces of my life arranged with museum care. A pink backpack from 3rd grade. A library book I never returned. A cracked mug from my mother's kitchen. A birthday card. I knew it before I touched it. Yellow envelope. My name in my mother's handwriting. Norabug. She had not called me that since my father's funeral. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a message written in blue pen. "Happy 11th, baby. Dad would be so proud of you." Except my 11th birthday happened 2 months before he died. My mother never wrote that. The handwriting was hers. The words were not. Behind me something moved. A soft shoe scrape. I turned. The aisle was empty. At the end, where the fluorescent light faded into shadow, stood a security camera, pointed directly at me. I ran. I do not remember leaving the aisle. That is the part that still bothers me. I remember standing there with the card. Then I remember being in the employee bathroom, locked in a stall, crying so hard I could not breathe. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. A voice note. I pressed play before I could think. My father's voice filled the bathroom. Not perfect. Thin. Mechanical under the warmth. But close enough to break me. "Hey Norabug," it said. "Don't cry in places where people can hear." The phone slipped from my hand. The bathroom fan hummed. A toilet flushed somewhere outside the stall. Then Jonah knocked on the restroom door from the hallway. "Nora?" I opened it because he sounded real. He was standing there with his hands raised, like I was an animal caught in wire. "Security wants to talk to you," he said. In the office, the night manager, Denise, played the footage. Black and white camera view. Hardware. Bins. Spill station. Me pushing a cart at 2:17. Then I stopped, turned toward the wall, and walked straight into the empty space between two shelves. There was no aisle on the footage, no lights, no products, just me disappearing behind a row of storage bins into a narrow shadow I had not noticed before. 3 minutes later, I came out crying, holding nothing. Denise folded her hands. "Nora, are you using anything?" "No." "Medication?" "No." "Stress?" I laughed once. A sharp, ugly sound. "Everyone has stress." She leaned back. "We've had issues with night crew getting spooked. People hear things, see things. This building is old." Jonah stood by the door, silent. On the monitor, I watched myself emerge from darkness with my mouth open, sobbing like a child. I had no memory of those 3 minutes. Denise sent me home early. Outside, rain turned the parking lot into a mirror. The Walmart sign glowed blue above me, huge and flat against the fog. My phone buzzed again. A new email. From my own address. Subject: "You left this behind." Attached was a photo of me at 8 years old, asleep on my father's chest. I had never posted that photo. It had been in a shoebox in my mother's closet. The email body contained one sentence: "Memory is just another thing people abandon." I did not sleep that day. I called my mother. She sounded small and far away, television murmuring behind her. "Did you send me a birthday card recently?" I asked. "What?" "With Dad mentioned in it." Silence. Then, "Nora, why would I do that? Did anyone ask you about me?" Another silence. "A man called last month," she said slowly. "Said he was from your college alumni office. Wanted to verify emergency contact information." My skin tightened. "What did you tell him?" "I don't know. Just basic things. He already had most of it." Rain ticked against my window. Across the street, the pharmacy neon flickered red. What did his voice sound like? "Kind," she said. That word made me sick. At work, Jonah waited for me near electronics. "You should quit," he said. "I need money. You need distance." "From what?" He looked toward the back of the store. Then he handed me a flash drive. I copied old incident reports from a computer they forgot to wipe. People complained about the same area for years. "Why do you have this?" His face tightened. "My sister worked here before she disappeared." The store sounds dropped away. Only the refrigerators remained. A low, endless hum. Disappeared? Officially, she ran off. Unofficially, she used to talk about an aisle that wasn't on the map. Jonah's sister was named Lacey. She worked overnight in 2019. On her last shift, security footage showed her walking into the same dead space behind sporting goods. She came out 15 minutes later calm. Too calm. Then she deleted her social media, emptied her bank account, and vanished. No one saw her leave town. Jonah's voice stayed controlled as he said this. That made it worse. Some grief screams. Some grief becomes organized. We watched the files in his car during lunch break, while rain blurred the windshield and distant highway lights smeared across the glass. There were reports. Missing phones. Voices heard over the intercom after closing. Employees receiving texts from dead relatives. One woman found her childhood blanket folded in the break room. Another heard her own voice calling from inside the wall. Then there were names. Caleb Pike, former overnight maintenance associate, presumed dead in the fire. No body recovered. The photo was old, pixelated from an employee badge. Pale face, dark eyes, small, careful smile. My dating app match. I felt the car tilt, although it had not moved. "He isn't dead," I whispered. Jonah stared at the windshield. "No." At 2:17 that night, we went together. Jonah had a flashlight, his phone recording, and a small radio clipped to his vest. I had pepper spray and a fear so large it felt almost calm. The aisle appeared as we approached. But now I saw what I had missed. It was not appearing. It was being revealed. A panel behind the spill station sat slightly open. Behind it, a narrow passage had been dressed like a retail aisle. Shelving on wheels, battery lights, fake signs, products arranged with theatrical precision. A stage. built inside a wound in the building. We stepped in. The air changed immediately. Colder, older. Behind the shelves, the walls were blackened in places, marked by smoke from a fire the company had painted around but never truly erased. The aisle bent where no aisle should bend. Past the fake shelves was a service corridor, then another, then a room. Inside were monitors, dozens, camera feeds from the store, break room, parking lot, registers, hallways, the cafe across campus, my apartment entrance. My stomach turned. There were shelves of stolen objects, phones labeled with names, USB drives, printed screenshots, medical forms, school records, photos, birthday cards. A rack of clothes hung along one wall. Jackets, scarves, work shirts, children's coats. My father's corduroy jacket was not his. It was a replica, a close one, good enough in bad light. On a desk sat an open laptop. A voice program displayed waveforms under a file labeled Dad Test 4. Below it, Nora Comfort script. Jonah whispered, Lacey. On another monitor, a paused video showed his sister sitting in this same room, crying while a man's hand placed a mug in front of her. A voice behind us said, she wanted to be found differently. Caleb stood at the corridor entrance wearing an old Walmart vest over a gray hoodie. He looked older than his badge photo. Thinner, almost gentle, not a monster. That was the worst thing. He looked like someone who would help you reach a high shelf. Jonah stepped in front of me. Caleb smiled sadly. Still protective, he said. That runs in your family. Jonah's voice broke. Where is she? Caleb looked at the monitors. People are never where you think they are. Mostly they live in what they leave behind. Where is my sister? Gone, Caleb said, but not wasted. I lifted my phone, still recording. Caleb noticed. His eyes softened. Nora, he said, you don't need to perform fear for evidence. I believe you. Hearing my name in his mouth felt like being touched. How do you know all this? I asked. He tilted his head. You told me. No, your mother did. Your school did. Your phone did. Ethan did. My breath stopped. He smiled, not cruelly. People like him are useful. Men who collect private things always think they're the only ones collecting. The room seemed to shrink. You talked to Ethan? I listened to him, Caleb said. There's a difference. He had so much of you. Scam shots, voice messages, old photos. Your grief was already archived before I found it. I wanted to disappear from my own skin. Caleb took one step closer. I gave it shape, he said. I returned what the world mishandled. You recreated my father. I recreated access. That's not love. No, he said. Love is too careless. Memory is cleaner. Jonah lunged. Caleb moved faster than I expected, knocking over a shelf. Cereal boxes burst across the floor. Plastic toys scattered. A battery light swung wildly, turning the burned walls into moving shadows. I ran. Not out. Deeper. Because the corridor behind Caleb led toward an emergency door sign. My shoulder hit metal shelves. My phone slipped but stayed in my hand. Behind me, Jonah shouted. Caleb's voice followed, still calm. Nora, don't make this another abandonment. The word cut because he knew it would. I reached the emergency door and pushed. Locked. Of course. Beside it was a rusted fire alarm. I pulled it. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then the whole building screamed. Red lights flashed through the hidden corridor. Sirens split the air. Somewhere beyond the wall, Walmart woke into chaos. Sprinklers clicked. Alarms echoed. Employees shouted. Caleb stopped. His calm cracked. Not into rage. Into grief. You shouldn't have done that, he said. I backed against the door. He walked toward me slowly, rainwater dripping somewhere overhead through the old roof. This place kept people, he said, when nobody else did. It stole them. They were already lost. The door behind me opened from the other side. Denise stood there with 2 police officers and Jonah's radio in her hand. For the first time, Caleb looked ordinary. Cornered. Small. Evidence does that. It turns mythology back into a man. The police found enough in that sealed section to reopen 5 missing person cases. Phones, IDs, journals, hard drives, clothes, recordings, scripts, fake accounts, AI voice files, burner phones, a map of routines. Mine was printed in blue ink. Classes, work shifts, cafe visits, calls to my mother, nights I cried with the window open. He had not guessed my loneliness. He had studied it. The news called him the Walmart ghost. People liked that version. It made the story cleaner. A ghost means nobody is responsible for the locked door that stayed locked. Nobody is responsible for the missing reports. Nobody is responsible for a corporation painting over a burned section and calling it renovation. Nobody is responsible for all the small ways we make lonely people easy to access. Jonah's sister was never found. Not fully, but pieces of her life were. A necklace, a notebook, a video where she looked into the camera and said, "If someone shows you exactly what you miss, don't trust them." I quit the next day. I moved out of the studio with the red pharmacy light, changed my number again, changed my email again. I stopped posting old photos. I asked my mother not to answer calls from strangers, even kind ones. For months, every aisle bothered me. Grocery stores, libraries, campus hallways, the narrow space between 2 parked cars. Anything could become a passage if someone knew where to push. Sometimes I still wake at 2:17. There is no Walmart hum now. No scanners. No rain on a flat roof. No aisle pretending to be memory. Only my apartment. My real one. Small. Quiet. Mine. But I still check corners. I still look at reflections in dark windows. I still distrust people who know too much too soon. Because being known can feel like rescue when you have been unseen for long enough. That is the trap. The most dangerous people do not always break down the door. Sometimes they build an aisle from everything you lost. They stock it with proof. They light it beautifully. They wait until grief makes you curious. And then they stand at the end of it, smiling softly, asking you to come closer. I used to think privacy meant hiding. Now I think privacy means choosing. What to give, who to give it to, when to stop. A memory is not an invitation. Pain is not a password. And no one who truly loves you needs to steal your past to make you stay. Story 2. The first time I heard Mr. Bell say it, I thought it was sweet. Have a peaceful day. He said it to Mrs. Klein, an old woman who came into Walmart every Tuesday morning for cat food, peppermint tea, and a single packet of lemon cookies. She smiled at him like he was family. You too, Mr. Bell. He touched 2 fingers to the brim of his blue cap. The automatic doors opened behind her. Rain blew in. Cold air. Wet pavement smell. A smear of neon from the pharmacy sign across the lot. By the next morning, Mrs. Klein was dead. That was how it started. Not with screaming. Not with blood. Not with anything dramatic enough to make people believe me later. Just a sentence. A smile. A woman walking into the rain. And then her name whispered around the break room the next day in that low, careful voice people use when death has entered a familiar place. I was 32 then, recently divorced, recently relocated, recently learning that loneliness could be louder than any argument. I took the job at Walmart because I needed money, and because the fluorescent lights made everything feel temporary. You could stand under them for 8 hours and forget who you had been before the shift began. I worked customer service, returns, complaints, price adjustments, people bringing back broken coffee makers, dead batteries, stained curtains, toys with missing parts, and sometimes entire pieces of their lives. Outside, the city stayed wet for most of October. Rain tapped the front windows. Tires hissed across the parking lot. The automatic doors sighed open and shut all day, breathing in cold fog and exhaust. At night, when my shift ended, I walked home past a closed nail salon, a 24-hour diner, and a cafe that played soft jazz through outdoor speakers even when no one was sitting there. The music always sounded lonely. So did I. Mr. Bell worked the front entrance. He was 70, maybe older, with silver hair, soft eyes, and hands that trembled only when he thought no one was looking. Customers loved him. Children waved at him. Managers used him as proof that the store still had warmth under all the scanners and security cameras. He remembered everyone. Names, birthdays, favorite cereal, which customers bought flowers on anniversaries, which ones used coupons, which ones came in late because they couldn't sleep. "Good morning, Ms. Reyes," he would say. "Your son feeling better?" "Hello, Mr. Carter. Back for those fishing lures?" "Evening, Mara. Chamomile tea again?" That was my name, Mara. He learned it on my first day. By my second week, he knew I drank chamomile after work. By my third, he knew I hated driving in rain. By my fourth, he knew my ex-husband's name. I never told him. I must have mentioned it around someone. Maybe HR paperwork. Maybe a coworker. Maybe I was overthinking. That was what recovery felt like sometimes. Standing in front of a locked door and arguing with yourself about whether it had always been locked. After Mrs. Klein, there was Dale Moreno. Dale bought motor oil, a frozen pizza, and a birthday card with a dog wearing sunglasses. He joked with Mr. Bell for nearly 5 minutes at the entrance. Before he left, Mr. Bell put a hand on his shoulder. "Have a peaceful day, Dale." Dale laughed. "Always do." 20 hours later, his photo appeared on the local news website. An accident, a wet road, a curve outside the city. No graphic details, just a smiling photo and words arranged to make absence sound official. I stared at the article on my phone in the break room while the vending machine hummed beside me. My coworker Tessa glanced over. "You okay?" Mr. Bell said it to him. "Said what?" "Have a peaceful day." Tessa chewed slowly. "He says nice things to everybody." "Not that." She gave me the tired look people give women who notice patterns too early. "Mara, you just got out of a bad marriage. Don't do this to yourself. Don't do this to yourself." As if fear were a hobby. As if suspicion were a room I had chosen to decorate. So I let it go. For 2 days. Then Mr. Bell said it to a teenage cashier named Amber when she switched shifts with someone last minute. "Have a peaceful day, sweetheart." Amber rolled her eyes, smiled, and walked into the fog. The next night, she was gone too. A simple line in a social media post. A candle emoji. A fundraiser link. The kind of public grief that turns a person into a thumbnail. After that, I started watching Mr. Bell. Not openly. Never openly. I watched from behind customer service while scanning receipts. I watched through reflections in the vending machine glass. I watched him greet strangers with perfect softness. Most people got it. "Take care. Stay dry. Good seeing you. Tell your mother hello." Only some got. "Have a peaceful day." And those people were always alone. Always distracted. Always carrying something invisible. Grief. Exhaustion. Debt. Fear. You could see it if you knew how to look. I knew how. My ex-husband, Paul, had taught me observation by making me live under it. He monitored my tone, my texts, my silence. He knew when I was about to cry before I did, and somehow made that my failure. When I left him, I thought surveillance was behind me. I did not understand that some people call surveillance attention. Some call it care. Some call it mercy. That was around the time I met Evan. He came into the store one night near closing, soaked from rain, looking for a phone charger. He had kind eyes and a quiet voice. He apologized for dripping water on the floor. "I'm sorry," he said. "You probably just cleaned this." I didn't, but I'll accept the apology on behalf of whoever did. He laughed softly. Not too much, just enough. He came back 2 nights later. Then again after that. Sometimes he bought nothing but gum or bottled water. Sometimes he stayed near customer service until my break, then walked to the cafe with me without making it feel like he had waited. He was a software consultant, he said. New to town. Divorced too. I know that look, he told me once as we sat by the cafe window, rain making silver threads down the glass. What look? The one where silence still feels like punishment. I turned my cup in my hands. Soft jazz played overhead. The refrigerator behind the counter hummed. Outside, traffic lights bled red across puddles. That obvious? No, he said. Only familiar. I wanted to believe him. So I did. Evan was easy to talk to. He never pushed. Never asked for trauma in one greedy piece. He listened in fragments. He remembered that I hated lilies. Remembered that Paul used to call me Mars when he wanted to sound affectionate after being cruel. Remembered that I didn't like voicemails because Paul used to leave calm, punishing ones. Except I had not told him all of that. Not directly. Maybe it came out over coffee. Maybe I posted something years ago. Maybe I was overthinking. I told myself it made sense. The next peaceful day happened on a Friday. A man named Henry Voss came in for printer ink, duct tape, and a cheap prepaid phone. He was thin, nervous, checking behind him every few seconds. Mr. Bell's voice softened when Henry approached. Rough night, Henry tried to laugh. Aren't they all? Mr. Bell leaned in. Not far, just enough. Sometimes rest finds us whether we ask for it or not. Henry's face changed, like he had heard something private. Then Mr. Bell said it. Have a peaceful day. I followed Henry into the parking lot with my eyes. Rain swept sideways beneath the lights. The carts rattled in their metal corral. Henry sat in his car for 10 minutes before driving away. I wrote down his license plate on the back of a return receipt. My hands shook. That night, my phone buzzed at 2:13 a.m. Unknown number. A voice note. At first, there was only breathing. Then Paul's voice. Mars, you're doing it again. I dropped the phone onto the bed. The room went silent except for the radiator clicking and rain tapping the window. Paul was 3 states away. Blocked. Gone. The voice continued from the screen. You always make patterns when you're scared. I did not sleep. By morning, Henry Voss was dead. Again, no details I could hold. Only official language. Accident. Late night. No suspected foul play. I showed Tessa the plate number. The article. The time. She looked scared for half a second. Then practical. You need to tell someone. I tried. No. Not co-workers. Police. The police took my statement in the Walmart parking lot beneath buzzing lights. A patrol car idled nearby. Rain tapped the hood. The younger officer wrote things down. The older one asked whether I had been under stress recently. Yes, I said. His pen paused. That was when I knew I had lost him. Stress makes women unreliable in official rooms. Fear becomes weather. Grief becomes evidence against itself. They spoke to Mr. Bell. He smiled kindly. He seemed heartbroken by the deaths. He called me a sensitive young woman who had been through too much. He said it gently. That was the worst part. Cruel people who sound cruel are easy to explain. Cruel people who sound kind make you sound unstable when you describe them. After the officers left, Mr. Bell found me near aisle 12. The store was nearly empty. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. A floor machine droned somewhere near grocery. Distant music crackled through the speakers. Mara, he said, I kept a shelf between us. You frightened yourself today. I know what I heard. Do you? His eyes were sad. Not angry. Never angry. That kind of certainty can be dangerous when a person is lonely. I swallowed. How do you know I'm lonely? He smiled. Everyone is. Some just shop later. That evening, Evan came over for the first time. I should not have invited him. I know that now. But the apartment felt too silent. My phone felt infected. Every shadow looked like a listening posture. He brought soup from the diner. My favorite. Chicken and rice with extra black pepper. I had never ordered it in front of him. Lucky guess, he said when I noticed. I wanted to believe it, so I did. We sat at my kitchen table while rain washed the window black. The refrigerator hummed. A siren rose somewhere far away and disappeared into the city. I told him about Mr. Bell. Everything. The phrase. The deaths. The notebook feeling I had, though I had not seen any notebook yet. Evan listened with his hands folded around his mug. You're not crazy, he said. The words landed in me like warmth. Then he added, but you need evidence. The next day I found it, not because I was brave, because the break room coffee machine broke, and I was sent to look for the maintenance binder in the old office behind the lockers. That room smelled of dust, burnt coffee, and wet cardboard. The fluorescent tube flickered. Rain ticked against the small wired glass window. There were binders on a metal shelf, schedules, safety forms, old inventory sheets, and beneath them, 3 black notebooks held together with rubber bands. The first page said, "Bell, front observation log." My mouth went dry. I opened it. Names, descriptions, times, purchases, license plates, phone models, routine notes. Klein, Marjorie. Widow. Cats. Tuesday 9:10. Slips near east curb when rain heavy. Declining vision. No local family. Peace. October 6th. Asterisk asterisk. I flipped faster. Moreno Dale. Drinks alone in truck before driving. Birthday guilt trigger. Peace. 10/12. Asterisk asterisk. Amber L. cashier. Swaps shifts. Walks under broken street lamp. Peace. 10/17. Asterisk asterisk. Voss Henry. Paranoid, unstable housing, prepaid phone. Suggest fatigue. Peace. 10/24. Asterisk asterisk. Then I found my name. Mara Ellis. Recently divorced. Hypervigilant. Lives alone. Walks home 11:40 via cafe route. Ex-husband voice sample available. Responds to validation. Possible witness risk. Peace pending asterisk asterisk. Below it. Handler contact, Evan. The room tilted. Somewhere outside, a cart slammed into a wall. My phone buzzed. A text from Evan. Did you find what you needed? The door behind me clicked. Mr. Bell stood there holding his blue cap in both hands. For a moment, he looked very old. Then he smiled. "Oh, Mara." I stepped back. "You killed them." "No." His voice stayed soft. "Death comes from many places. We only noticed doors left open. You stalked them. We observed. You set them up. We relieved pressure." The fluorescent light flickered above us. The notebooks shook in my hands. "Who is Evan?" Mr. Bell's smile faded slightly. "A young man who understands modern tools better than I do. He's part of this. Part of what people ask for without knowing how to ask." I stared at him. He sounded almost sorry for me. That was his gift. Making horror sound like counseling. You target vulnerable people. We identify suffering. And then, he lowered his voice. Then we create conditions. No details. No confession clear enough for court. Just philosophy. Just fog. My phone buzzed again. A voice note. Evan's voice. Asterisk Mara, don't panic. Panic makes people careless. Asterisk. Behind it, another voice spoke. Paul's. Mars listened to him. AI. Voice samples. Old posts. Stolen recordings. My body knew it was fake before my mind accepted it. Mr. Bell watched recognition move across my face. "You see," he said, "people are more predictable than they can bear to admit." I ran. Not out the back. Not toward the break room door where he stood. I ran through the emergency exit. The alarm screamed. Cold rain hit my face. The world became parking lot lights, wet asphalt, distant traffic, my own breath tearing out of me. I heard Mr. Bell behind me, not running. Just calling. Mara. Calm. Patient. The way Paul used to say my name when he wanted me to stop acting human. I reached my car. The tires were low. All 4. Not flat. Just low enough to be dangerous in rain. A paper bag sat on the windshield. Inside was a prepaid phone. It began ringing. I backed away. Across the lot, Evan stood beneath the pharmacy neon. No umbrella. No expression. He lifted his hand in a small wave. My own phone buzzed. A text. Asterisk walk home. It is safer. Asterisk. Then another. The cafe route is peaceful tonight. I looked toward the street. The street lamp near the alley was out, just like the notes had said about Amber. A police cruiser pulled into the lot. For one wild second, I thought I was saved. Then I remembered the notebooks in my hands. Evidence. Real evidence. I held them above my head like a flare and ran toward the cruiser. The officer got out. Evan crossed the lot too. Slow. Concerned. "She's confused," he called. "She's been having episodes." The phrase was ready. Clean. Preloaded. Mr. Bell appeared behind me, breathing hard but still composed. "Mara, sweetheart," he said, "have a peaceful day." The words opened beneath me like a trapdoor. Not because I believed in prophecy, because I understood now. It was not a blessing. It was an activation, a signal. Somewhere, someone would send the message. Move the car, make the call, trigger the fake voice, send the location, cut the light, create the accident. The officer looked from him to me. Rain slid down his face. "Ma'am, what's going on?" I shoved the notebooks into his hands. "Read my page." Evan stepped closer. I turned my phone screen toward the officer. Messages. Voice notes. Handler contact. The officer's expression changed slowly. Not enough. But enough. Then Tessa came running from the entrance. She had her phone raised. "I recorded him," she shouted. "In the break room hallway. I recorded everything." That saved me. Not belief. Evidence. Always evidence. The next hour blurred. More police. Store security. Managers pale under fluorescent light. Mr. Bell seated calmly on a bench near the entrance where he had greeted thousands of people. Evan in handcuffs beside a patrol car, still looking at me like I had disappointed him. Inside Evan's backpack, they found burner phones, printed maps, RFID tags, a tiny tracker, and a laptop with encrypted chat logs still open. The group called itself the Quiet Door. Not a cult, officially. Not exactly. A private online forum. Invitation only. Members traded information on vulnerable people the way others discussed weather. Grief forums. Public obituaries. Dating profiles. Customer habits. Metadata from photos. Old videos used to clone voices. Routines collected through kindness, employment, delivery apps, and conversation. They called targets burdens. They called staged accidents releases. They called themselves merciful. Police did not. At least not once they had the notebooks. Mr. Bell had been their hunter at the front door. Sweet Mr. Bell. Harmless Mr. Bell. The man who remembered birthdays and cat food, and which cashier walked home alone. He watched people enter under fluorescent lights, and chose who looked easiest to erase. Evan was not Evan. His real name was Daniel Price, though the detectives said there were other names tied to him. He had found me through a divorce support forum I barely remembered joining. He knew Paul's voice from an old video my sister had posted. He knew Mars because Paul had once written it in a public comment beneath a photo. Nothing was hidden. Not really. It was only scattered. And scattered things can be gathered by patient hands. The case took months. Mr. Bell pleaded innocence until the chat logs came back. Even then, he never raised his voice. In court, he looked like someone's grandfather. He wore a sweater. He used a cane. He cried once when Mrs. Klein's niece read a statement. People in town still argued about him. Some said he had been manipulated. Some said he was lonely. Some said he had only written things down. That was the part that stayed with me. How badly people wanted gentleness to equal goodness. How hard it was for them to believe danger could smile, remember your tea, and open the door for old women. I quit the store before winter ended. I moved again. Smaller apartment. Second floor. No cafe downstairs this time. No jazz at midnight unless I play it myself. I deleted old posts, changed numbers, closed accounts, locked everything I could lock. But I know better now than to think privacy can be fully recovered once it has been treated as raw material. Sometimes in grocery stores, a greeter says hello and my heart jumps. Sometimes someone remembers my name and I feel cold before I feel flattered. Sometimes my phone buzzes late at night and I wait too long before looking. The world has not become more dangerous. I have only become less willing to mistake attention for care. That is what Mr. Bell took from me. Not innocence. I had lost that before him. He took the comfort of being recognized. He made memory feel like a weapon. We want to be known. That is the human wound. We want someone to notice our favorite soup, our tired eyes, our old nicknames, the route we take home when rain turns the streetlights soft and gold. But being known is not the same as being loved. Sometimes it is only being mapped. Sometimes kindness is a clipboard. Sometimes a gentle voice at the door is not wishing you peace. Sometimes it is checking whether you are alone enough to disappear. Story 3. The mannequin appeared during the rainy week. That is how I remember it. Not by date, by weather. 7 days of water tapping the windows, sliding down the automatic doors, turning the parking lot into a black mirror full of brake lights and neon signs. The whole city looked bruised. Red from the pharmacy sign, blue from the laundromat, white from the Walmart letters glowing above the entrance like something holy and tired. I worked register 6. Even now I can hear it. The scanner beep, the receipt printer clicking, the freezer doors humming at the back of the store, plastic bags whispering open, customers sighing like we had personally invented inflation. I was 19, newly single, newly broke, and newly living with my aunt in a one-bedroom apartment that smelled like fabric softener and old radiator heat. My parents were divorcing. My boyfriend had broken up with me over text, and then kept watching all my stories from a private account he thought I did not know about. So I took extra shifts. Work was simple. Scan, smile, bag, repeat. There was comfort in repetition. Pain does not disappear when you are busy, but it becomes background noise. Like refrigerators, like rain, like the soft jazz station my aunt played every night while she smoked out the kitchen window and pretended she was not worried about me. The mannequin showed up in the clearance section on a Wednesday. At first, it was funny. It stood between the last chance winter coats and a rack of children's pajamas, wearing a red hoodie, black joggers, and white sneakers with the laces tucked in. No face, just a smooth white plastic mask. Not painted, no smile, no eyes. A blank oval turned slightly toward the registers. My coworker Tasha noticed it first. "Since when do we have that creepy thing?" she said, chewing mint gum behind customer service. I looked over. The mannequin stood beneath a flickering fluorescent light. "Probably apparel trying to make clearance look less tragic," I said. Tasha snorted. "That thing makes clearance look like it needs therapy." We laughed because it was easier than admitting it felt wrong. By Friday, the mannequin wore a blue dress. The red hoodie was gone. Nobody had seen anyone change it. "Night shift," our manager Dale said without looking up from his tablet. Dale blamed everything on night shift. Missing carts, broken scanners, mystery smells. Once, a box of bananas appeared in electronics and Dale just said, "Night shift." So I accepted it. I wanted to believe it was ordinary. That is always the first mistake. The store had strange reflections at night. After 9, when the families thinned out and the aisles grew long and glossy under fluorescent light, you could see pieces of yourself everywhere. In the freezer doors, in the security mirrors, in the black screens of locked phones behind electronics. You would glance over and see your own face stretched and pale, or someone behind you, or no one. On Saturday, I saw the mannequin reflected in the freezer doors. It was not in clearance. It was at the end of frozen foods, standing near the pizzas, facing me. I turned around so fast my scanner slipped from my hand and clattered against the counter. Nothing, only aisle 9, freezers humming, a woman choosing waffles, a child dragging one shoe across the floor. Tasha looked over. "You okay, Mia?" "Yeah," I said. The lie came too quickly. I had learned that from home. When parents fight, children become translators of silence. You learn which sounds matter. A door closing, a glass set down too hard, a pause before your name. You learn to say you are fine because fine is safer than truth. That night, my phone buzzed at 1:12 a.m. Unknown account. A message request on Instagram. "You work too hard for someone who hates being watched." The profile picture was black. No posts. No followers. I blocked it. Then I stared at my ceiling while rain tapped against the window and my aunt's jazz played softly from the kitchen. Maybe it was my ex. Maybe it was someone from school. Maybe it was random. Maybe I was overthinking. By Monday, customers started complaining. An older man at register 4 leaned close to me and whispered, "There's a person standing by the restroom." Just watching. I looked toward the restroom hallway. The mannequin stood there, wearing a Walmart vest, yellow name badge, khaki pants, blank face turned toward the registers. My mouth went dry. "That's just a display," I said. The man frowned. "Displays don't move their heads." I called Dale. He walked over with the tired confidence of a man who had never believed a teenage girl the first time she said anything. "It's a mannequin," he said. "It wasn't there earlier. Apparel probably moved it." "Dale, it's wearing a vest." He sighed. "Mia, I have 3 call-outs, 2 broken self-checkouts, and a woman in aisle 6 threatening to sue us over expired yogurt. Please don't make me solve a mannequin." So I let it go. Again. That was the second mistake. There was a guy who started coming through my line around then. Caleb. At least that was the name on his loyalty account. He was maybe 25. Soft-spoken. Dark coat. Always bought ordinary things. Coffee creamer. Apples. Phone chargers. Instant noodles. Once, a bouquet of cheap white flowers that he said were for his mother. He never flirted exactly. That was why I trusted him. He noticed without pushing. "You look tired," he said one rainy night, placing a frozen pizza on the belt. "Cashier face," I said. "No," he said. "The kind of tired people get when home isn't restful." I stopped scanning. He gave a small, apologetic smile. "Sorry." That sounded invasive. It did, but it also sounded accurate. "My parents are splitting up," I said before I could stop myself. His expression changed gently. "That makes the whole world feel temporary." I looked at him. No one had said it that way before. Not my friends. Not my aunt. Not even my mother. "Yeah," I said. "Exactly." He nodded once, like he would not take more than I offered. Then he paid and left. Outside, rain striped the glass doors. The parking lot reflected red taillights and blue pharmacy neon. For a second, Caleb's reflection crossed the glass. Behind him, near the cart return, stood the mannequin. No, not stood. Waited. The next morning, I got an email. No subject. Just a voice note attached. I almost deleted it. Then I saw the sender name. Caleb M. The note was 12 seconds long. His voice came through my cheap earbuds warm and low, with the faint crackle of a phone recorded somewhere public. "Hey Mia, sorry if this is weird. You looked shaken last night. I just wanted to say, you're allowed to trust yourself, even when other people make you feel dramatic." I played it twice, then a third time. Trust yourself. It felt like water. I did not wonder how he got my email until later. That is the embarrassing part. Comfort delayed suspicion. It does that. For the next week, Caleb became a small, safe thing. He came through my line every other evening. He never stayed too long. Never asked where I lived. Never touched my hand when I gave him change. But he knew things. Little things. He knew I drank gas station iced coffee before shifts. "Caramel," he said once, glancing at the cup beside my register. "You seem like someone who pretends bitter coffee builds character but secretly wants sugar." I laughed. He knew I hated the walk to the bus stop after closing. "This block gets too quiet after 11, he said. That made sense. Anyone could know that. He knew my old nickname. Mimi. Only my dad called me that, and only when he was in a good mood. Caleb said it casually while picking up a receipt. "Take care, Mimi." The scanner beeped in my hand, though I had not scanned anything. "What did you call me?" He blinked. "Mia." I said Mia. "No, you didn't." His face softened with concern. "You okay?" There it was. The question that makes you feel like the problem. I forced a smile. "Yeah, long shift." He left. My phone buzzed 5 minutes later. Unknown account. Mimi hears everything. I went cold. The mannequin was back in clearance. This time wearing a hoodie identical to mine. Gray. Oversized. Frayed cuff on the left sleeve. My hoodie was in my locker. I checked during break. It was still there, but the mannequin's sleeve had the same fray. The same tiny blue paint stain near the pocket from when my little cousin spilled craft paint at my aunt's apartment. I stood in the break room with my locker open, listening to the vending machine hum and someone's microwave meal spin behind me. Maybe lots of hoodies looked like that. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was overthinking. I told myself it made sense. But that night, I took pictures. The mannequin in clearance. The hoodie. The blank plastic face. I sent them to Tasha. She replied, "Girl, that thing wasn't there when I left." Then another message. "Wait." It moved. I looked up. The mannequin was no longer in clearance. It was at the end of the main aisle, facing register 6. Facing me. A customer in my line turned around and laughed nervously. "Is that supposed to be there?" "No," I said. For once, I did not soften it. Dale checked the cameras, or said he did. "There's glare on aisle cam 12, he told me later. "And blind spots by clearance. We'll ask apparel tomorrow." "What about inventory?" "It's a mannequin, Mia. We don't inventory mannequins like cereal." But Tasha did check. She had worked apparel before. She knew the display logs, the backroom tags, the vendor codes. At 10:47, she came to my register, chewing no gum, eyes sharp. "There's no mannequin," she whispered. I looked toward clearance. It stood under the flickering light. Red hoodie again. Blank face. "What do you mean?" "I mean we don't have one. None in inventory. None shipped. None approved. Apparel says they thought front end put it there." The receipt printer clicked. A distant child cried. Freezer doors hummed. Somewhere above us, a speaker played the store's cheerful closing reminder. Tasha leaned closer. "Mia, that thing is not ours." My phone buzzed. "Caleb." Not a text. A voice note. I pressed play before thinking. His voice filled my ear. "Don't panic in public. People dismiss frightened girls. Breathe. Smile. Finish your shift. Then walk to the north exit, not the bus stop." I looked around. My body went quiet. Very quiet. Not calm. A survival version of stillness. The mannequin's head was turned slightly toward me. For the first time, I noticed the neck. Not plastic. Skin. Only a thin strip visible under the mask. Pale. Damp. Human. I dropped the phone. The screen cracked against the floor. The mannequin did not move. That was worse. I told Dale. This time, my voice did something that made him listen. He called security. Security called police. Not emergency police, at first. Just the local non-emergency line, because no one wanted to be the person who said, "There is a living mannequin in clearance," out loud with confidence. When 2 officers arrived, the mannequin was gone. Of course it was. They checked clearance. Restrooms, fitting rooms, garden center, the back room. Nothing. One officer took my statement while Dale stood nearby with his arms folded. "Any conflicts with coworkers?" the officer asked. "No. Ex-boyfriend? Maybe. You said someone has been messaging you." I showed what I had. Blocked accounts. Scam shots. The voice note from Caleb. The unknown messages. The officer's expression shifted at the voice note. "Do you know this Caleb? He shops here." "Full name?" "No." "Phone number?" "No." Dale exhaled. I heard it. I hated him for it. Outside, rain hit the automatic doors in silver bursts. The street beyond the parking lot glowed with late-night neon. The store felt too bright, too exposed, like there was nowhere to hide because every aisle was a stage. The officers told me not to walk home alone. Tasha drove me. In the car, she kept glancing at me like she was afraid I might break. "You can stay at mine tonight," she said. "I'm okay." "No, you're not." I almost cried because she said it plainly, not as an accusation, as fact. My aunt was asleep when I got home. Soft jazz played low in the kitchen. Rain tapped the window over the sink. The apartment radiator hissed. I sat on the edge of my bed and opened the voice note again. Caleb's voice. Warm. Precise. People dismiss frightened girls. Something about it bothered me now. Not the words. The rhythm. It sounded almost too clean. Too balanced. like a script dressed as concern. I searched the email header from the first note. I did not understand most of what I saw, but one line showed a sending service. Then another. Then a temporary domain. I searched Caleb's loyalty account through the employee system the next day. No Caleb M. No matching transactions. The account number on his receipts belonged to a woman in another state. I checked his face in my memory and realized I had never seen him clearly. Always under a hood. Always angled away from cameras. Always ordinary enough to vanish. The next clue came from the freezer doors. I was closing with Tasha. It was 11:18. The store had emptied into that late-night sadness big stores get when the music keeps playing for almost no one. The floors smelled like cleaner. The lights buzzed. Outside, fog pressed against the glass. A customer service phone rang once. Stopped. Rang again. Stopped. Then my phone buzzed from inside my vest pocket. Unknown number. Looked behind milk. Tasha saw my face. What? I pointed. We walked together. Slowly. Past chips. Past cereal. Past refrigerated juice. The freezer doors reflected us as pale doubled figures. Two girls in blue vests moving through fluorescent emptiness. Behind the milk case, tucked between cartons, was a burner phone. Still recording. Beside it was a folded paper. On it, in neat block letters, Mia, register 6. Brakes, 7:35, 9:50. Bus stop, east side. Aunt, apartment 3B. Dad calls her Mimi. Responds to calm male reassurance. Likes being told she is not dramatic. Tasha said something I barely heard. My ears had filled with static. Then the freezer door beside us fogged from the inside. A finger drew one line through it. Not from our side. From behind the glass. Slow. Vertical. Like someone saying, I am here. We ran. This time the police came fast. They found him in the maintenance corridor behind the freezer units. Not Caleb. Not at first. A person in layers of clearance clothes, wearing a hard white plastic mask and a Walmart vest with no name tag. He had been using service passages, employee doors, blind spots, and the old fitting room storage area that no one checked because it had been temporarily closed for months. In his backpack were masks, burner phones, printed employee schedules, a small camera hidden inside a fake inventory scanner, and 3 laminated employee badges with names that did not belong to anyone. One said Caleb. The man beneath the mask was named Aaron Voss. But he was not alone. That was the part that kept me from sleeping later. Police found chat logs, a private online group. They called themselves the Floorwalkers. They traded routines, store maps, employee names, public social media, dating app screenshots, old school posts, voice samples from TikToks and live streams. They practiced approaching people as customers, co-workers, fake friends, concerned strangers, choosing one, studying them, following them home. They had done it before in other towns, not always in stores, sometimes libraries, gyms, cafes, apartment buildings, places where people became routine, places where being seen was normal enough that watching could hide inside it. Caleb had never existed. His voice notes were AI generated from a model trained on soft-spoken male podcasts and my interaction history. Aaron wore an earpiece while he came through my line. Someone online fed him lines in real time. That was why he always knew what to say. He was not intuitive. He was networked. The kindness had been collaborative. A committee of strangers building the exact shape of my vulnerability. I saw Aaron once after the arrest. At the station. No mask now. He was smaller than I expected. Thin. Pale. Early 30s. A face you would forget while still looking at it. He sat behind glass with his hands folded. When he saw me, he smiled like we shared something private. You scared me, I said. His expression softened. I saw you. No, you were lonely. I hated that word in his mouth. You don't know me. I knew your patterns. That isn't knowing. He tilted his head, the same way the mannequin had. People are their patterns, Mia. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I said, People are what they choose when no one is studying them. His smile faded, only slightly. Enough. I left before he could say my name again. Months have passed. I still work retail, but not at that store. The new place has windows near the registers and fewer blind spots. Tasha works there too. She jokes that we are a package deal now, like batteries included. My aunt still plays jazz at night. The city still shines after rain. Neon still breaks apart in puddles. The refrigerator still hums. My phone still buzzes too loudly in the dark. Some things remain ordinary. Some things have to. But I do not stand with my back to clearance sections anymore. I check reflections. I notice masks. I notice when someone knows too much too quickly. That is the damage stalking leaves behind. Not only fear, precision, a terrible education. You learn that attention is not always affection. That comfort can be engineered. That privacy can be stolen one small routine at a time. My father still calls me Mimi, and for a while I hated the sound of it because they had taken it from him and put it in a stranger's mouth. But I am trying to take things back. Names, songs, blue hoodies, the right to be seen without being owned. Trust, I think, is not blindness. It is consent. It is choosing who gets close enough to know the soft parts. Safety is not the absence of watchers. There are always watchers now. Cameras, apps, reflections, strangers with empty carts, faces passing behind glass. Safety is knowing where your boundaries are and believing yourself when someone crosses them. And memory is not an inventory system. It is not a list of habits. It is not a schedule taped to the inside of a stranger's backpack. Memory is alive because it belongs to someone, because it changes when we survive. Sometimes, under fluorescent lights, I still see a blank white face in the corner of my eye, still standing, still waiting. Then I turn, and it is only a coat rack, only a customer, only my reflection in the freezer doors. But my body remembers first. My mind follows after. And somewhere between fear and proof, I have learned to trust the part of me that whispers. Look again. Story 4. The receipt printer started talking to me on a Wednesday night. Not in a voice. That would have been easier. Voices can be blamed on exhaustion, on grief, on the cheap fluorescent lights that buzzed above aisle 7 until the sound got inside your teeth. This was quieter, more deliberate. Ink on thermal paper. A message at the bottom of a receipt where the coupon code should have been. Don't let the woman in yellow leave. I stared at it while the printer kept clicking. The woman in yellow stood across from me at register 2, digging through her purse for loyalty points. She wore a raincoat the color of old mustard and smelled faintly of cigarettes, wet wool, and vanilla hand cream. Outside, rain silvered the glass doors. The parking lot was a black mirror, broken by neon reflections from the pharmacy sign across the street. It was 2:13 a.m., the hour when everyone looked guilty of something. "Everything okay?" she asked. I folded the receipt before she could see it. "Printer glitch." She smiled politely. Tired eyes. A woman trying to get home. I handed her the bag. "Have a good night." The doors opened with a soft mechanical sigh. Rain blew in. She crossed the lot under the sodium lights, yellow coat glowing against the dark. Then she passed behind a delivery van, and never came out the other side. At first, I told myself I had looked away. Maybe she got into a car. Maybe the angle was bad. Maybe I was tired. I was always tired then. I had been working overnight shifts at Halden Mart for 6 weeks, ever since I left my ex and moved into a studio above a shuttered travel agency on Mercer Street. The apartment smelled of dust, radiator heat, and the old carpets of people who had disappeared without cleaning properly. My life had narrowed to small sounds. Rain tapping the window, the fridge humming, my phone buzzing at midnight. Footsteps in the hallway that stopped when I stopped breathing. I had left Jonah in winter. That was how I thought of it, not as a breakup, an extraction. He never called it control. He called it concern. He read my messages because I was forgetful, tracked my location because the city was dangerous, corrected my clothes because people made assumptions, corrected my tone because I embarrassed myself. By the end, I heard his voice before making choices, even alone, especially alone. So I took the night job because daytime felt too exposed. Overnight, the world was simplified. Shelves, barcodes, coffee machines, lottery tickets. The same tired customers buying milk, painkillers, cigarettes, frozen pizza, batteries. Halden Mart hummed like a ship in fog. Freezers breathed cold into aisle 8. Security monitors glowed blue behind the service counter. The receipt printer clicked and spat and clicked. A machine with one job, until it started warning me. The second message came 2 nights later. A man in a gray hoodie bought chewing gum and a prepaid phone card. He looked ordinary. Everyone dangerous looks ordinary until later. The printer whirred before I hit total. That was the first wrong thing. The transaction had not finished. No payment. No receipt due. Still, the paper slid out. At the bottom, beneath the store logo and return policy, was a line in sharp black text. Check the freezer aisle. The man looked at the receipt, then at me. Is that mine? I pulled it back too fast. No. Sorry. System test. He watched me. A small smile moved across his mouth. Late shift does things to the brain. Then he left. The doors breathed open. Rain swept in again. After he was gone, I walked to aisle 8. The freezers hummed in a long, electrical note. Frost clouded the glass doors. Frozen peas, pizza rolls, ice cream tubs. The store radio played soft jazz from the ceiling speakers. Some late-night playlist corporate had chosen for people too tired to complain. A saxophone trembled over the hum of refrigeration. I checked behind the freezer end cap. Nothing. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. You looked too late. I dropped the phone. It hit the tile and skidded under the frozen dinners. I stood there listening. Freezers humming. Rain on the roof. My own breathing. Then, faintly from the back room, a floor creak. Halden Mart had 3 employees on overnight rotation. Me, Nadia, who worked weekends, and Dean, the assistant manager, who stayed in the office most nights pretending inventory needed constant emotional support. Dean was kind in a quiet way. That was what I thought then. He was 34 maybe. Soft-spoken, careful beard, wireframe glasses. He wore cardigans under his store vest and drank black coffee from a thermos covered in chipped mountain stickers. The first night I worked with him, a customer shouted at me over expired coupons. My hands began shaking so badly I could not scan a tin of soup. Dean stepped in without making a scene. "Sir," he said, calm as rain, "she's doing the transaction correctly." The man left angry. Dean did not ask me why I froze. He just handed me a paper cup of coffee and said, "People who were trained to expect anger recognize it before it arrives." I hated that he was right. I liked that he did not make me explain. After the freezer message, I found him in the office surrounded by invoices and camera feeds. "Can receipts print before payment?" I asked. He looked up slowly. "No." "Why?" I showed him the strip of paper. He read it. His face changed in a controlled way. Concern first, then focus. Could be remote access. To the printer? To the POS system? Maybe the whole network. The store lights buzzed overhead. On the monitors, the parking lot showed rain, empty cart corrals, a blue sedan with fogged windows, the blind spot behind the delivery van. I pointed to it. A woman disappeared there 2 nights ago. Dean leaned closer to the screen. Disappeared? I don't know. She walked behind the van. I didn't see her come out. His voice lowered. "You didn't tell anyone?" I looked at him. The old shame rose immediately. I thought I was tired. Dean nodded like this was not foolish. Like he understood the shape of doubt. "Don't let your first explanation always be that you're wrong," he said. That sentence stayed with me. It sounded like rescue. I wanted to believe it. Around the same time, I met Theo. Dating app. Of course. Loneliness has modern infrastructure. His profile was plain. A photograph outside a cafe window during rain. Dark coat. Half smile. No shirtless mirror picture. No aggressive charm. His bio said, I like quiet kitchens, night walks, and people who notice weather. I almost deleted the app. Then his message came. You look like someone who hates being asked why she's awake. I stared at it during my break, sitting in the stockroom between boxes of cereal and bottled water while the vending machine hummed in the corner. I typed, "That obvious?" He replied, "Only to another person awake for reasons." Theo became part of my 4 a.m. hours. He sent voice notes when the store was empty. His voice was warm, low, slightly tired, the kind of voice that felt like a lamp left on. "You don't have to prove you're okay to deserve peace," he said once. I played that message 3 times in the staff bathroom, while rain ticked against the small frosted window. I told him about Jonah. Not all of it. Enough. Theo never pushed. Dean never pushed. Between them, my life began to feel observed in a way that did not hurt. That was the danger. Not being watched. Being watched gently. The third message printed on a Sunday. A teenage boy bought energy drinks, sour candy, and a disposable vape he was too young for. I refused the vape. He rolled his eyes. The receipt printer clicked. "He is standing behind you." My skin tightened. The boy said, "What?" I turned. No one. Just aisle 1 stretching behind me. Wet footprints leading from the entrance. Fluorescent light shining on polished floor. The lottery machine blinking red. But in the dark reflection of the glass doors, I saw a shape near the greeting cards. Someone standing perfectly still. When I looked directly, the aisle was empty. The boy grabbed his bag and left. On the parking lot camera, I watched him cross toward the bus stop. A black SUV pulled up. Not too close. Not obviously. The boy checked his phone, then walked toward it. The feed glitched. 1 second of static. When it returned, the SUV was gone. So was the boy. I called Dean. He came out of the office smelling of coffee and printer dust. Together, we watched the footage. Again. 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 Static at the exact moment that mattered. Dean rubbed his jaw. "That's not a system glitch." "No. We need to call the police." His certainty calmed me, then frightened me, because I had been waiting for someone else to give my fear permission. The officers arrived at 5:20 a.m. Rain had softened to mist. The sky over the parking lot was turning the color of old metal. I gave them the receipts. Dean gave them the footage. They listened. They took notes. They used words like possible prank, network intrusion, missing persons, and follow-up. One officer asked whether I had been sleeping. Dean answered before I could. "She's credible." I looked at him. He did not look back. That should have warmed me. Instead, something in me went still. That morning, Theo sent a voice note. "I'm proud of you for telling the police." I stood in my apartment kitchen, still wearing my uniform, rainwater drying on my sleeves. I had not told him. I listened again. His voice continued. "You always hesitate before asking for help. But you did it." My refrigerator hummed behind me. The radiator clicked. Somewhere outside, a bus exhaled at the curb. I typed, "How do you know I called the police?" 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared. "You said you might." I assumed, asterisk asterisk. I wanted to believe it. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe I had mentioned it between messages. Maybe exhaustion was stitching things together wrong. I told myself it made sense. Then the receipt printed my name. Not while serving a customer. Not during a transaction. The store was empty. Rain tapped the front windows. Soft jazz moved through the ceiling speakers. The coffee machine hissed at the self-serve counter. The printer clicked once, then fed out a long white strip. I walked toward it slowly. My shoes sounded too loud on the tile. At the bottom of the receipt, beneath blank item lines and a total of $0, it said, "Your name is not safe anymore, Mara." I had not used my full name at work. My badge said M. Voss. Everyone called me M. Only Jonah called me Mara when he wanted me to feel small. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Names are doors. Yours has been open for weeks. Asterisk asterisk. I locked the front entrance. Against policy. Against common sense. Against fear becoming obedience. Then I went to the office and checked the employee logs. Dean was not there. His thermos sat on the desk. His cardigan hung on the chair. The monitors showed the front aisles, the back hallway, the parking lot, the stockroom. I scrubbed through footage from the last week. The woman in yellow, the man with the prepaid card, the teenage boy. Each one left the store carrying a receipt. Each one paused just outside the automatic doors. Each one looked down at the paper. Each one changed direction. The woman in yellow walked not to her car, but toward the side alley. The man in gray went to the loading bay. The boy went to the SUV. On every feed, just before they vanished from view, the camera glitched. Static. Snow. A white blink. Like the store itself was closing its eyes. Then I found footage of myself. Not from the store cameras. From my apartment hallway. A grainy clip nested inside the system archive under a folder labeled Training Assets. Me unlocking my studio door. Me carrying groceries. Me standing outside my apartment window at night, visible only as a reflection. My hands went numb. There were more files. Screenshots of my dating profile. Copies of my schedule. Voice recordings from my breaks. Audio from the staff bathroom. My own voice, cleanly clipped. I'm sorry. I thought I locked it. I don't remember. I'm scared. A subfolder was labeled Tao Moden. Inside were generated audio files, comfort phrases, response scripts, prompts based on my messages. Theo was not real. Theo was a machine wearing someone else's warmth. I stepped back from the computer. Behind me, the printer in the front of the store clicked. Once. Twice. I walked toward it because fear is not always running away. Sometimes fear follows the string deeper. A receipt slid out. Check the freezer aisle. The same message as before. Only this time, below it, another line printed. Dean is not in the office. The freezers hummed at the far end of the store. Aisle 8 glowed pale blue. I picked up the store phone and dialed emergency services. My voice sounded distant. My name is Mara Voss. I'm at Halden Mart on Mercer and 5th. Someone has hacked our system. People may have been abducted from the parking lot. I think the person is inside. The dispatcher asked me to stay on the line. I did, but I walked anyway. Past canned soup, past cereal, past greeting cards with smiling cartoon animals. Rain drummed harder against the roof. The lights flickered. The freezer aisle breathed cold over my face. At the end of the aisle, the staff-only freezer door stood open an inch. The phone pressed against my ear. The dispatcher said, "Ma'am, do not go in." I stopped. From inside the freezer, a phone buzzed. Then another. Then another. A small chorus of trapped insects. I pushed the door with my fingertips. Cold air rolled out. Inside were phones. Not bodies. Phones. Lined on a metal shelf. Some cracked. Some wet. Some still lit with notifications. The woman in yellow's lock screen showed a child in a school uniform. The teenage boy's phone had 6 missed calls from Mom. A prepaid phone displayed one message. Wait by the loading bay. Do not speak to cashier. Asterisk asterisk. The trap was not in the freezer. The freezer was evidence. A museum of erased exits. Then I heard breathing behind me. I turned. Dean stood at the end of the aisle. Not smiling. Not threatening. Just watching me with that familiar calm. The calm I had mistaken for safety. "Mara," he said. My full name. Softly. Carefully. Like he owned the pronunciation. Police sirens began far away. Thin at first. Then growing. "You built Theo," I said. Dean's expression flickered. Almost disappointment. "Theo helped you. You used him. I used what you would accept." The freezer motors hummed around us. Cold burned my fingers. My phone was still connected to dispatch. I kept it low by my side. "Where are they?" I asked. "The people from the receipts." "Safe enough." "That isn't an answer. It's the only one you can handle right now." His voice remained gentle. That was the worst part. No shouting. No mask slipping into madness. Just a man who believed his control was care. "I didn't hurt them in the store," he said. "That matters." "No, it doesn't. He tilted his head. You're stronger when you disagree. I hated that he sounded proud. I backed away. He stepped forward. The receipts were tests at first, he said. Instructions. Compliance markers. People obey machines faster than people. A printed message feels procedural. Official. Nobody wants to be the person who causes trouble at 2 in the morning. Why? He looked toward the front windows, where rain ran down the glass in silver threads. Because everyone has a pattern. Everyone can be redirected with the right sentence. His eyes returned to me. You most of all. The sirens were closer now. Blue light began to pulse faintly through the front glass. Dean noticed. A sadness crossed his face. You called before checking the freezer. Yes. Good, he whispered. You're learning. I realized then that the final receipt had not been a mistake. It had been an invitation. He wanted me to find the phones. Wanted me to find him. Wanted the story to become intimate before it became criminal. I'm not your project, I said. His face hardened slightly. No, you were supposed to be the witness. To what? To how easily people vanish when systems tell others not to look. For a moment, I saw the whole architecture. The receipt system. The camera glitches. The fake voice notes. The burner phones. The late-night customers chosen because they were alone, tired, distracted, half invisible already. And me, the cashier. The person who saw the messages. The person he had been training to doubt herself, then rely on him. Then help without understanding. Maybe one day the receipt would have told me to unlock the side door. Maybe one day Theo would have told me I was brave. Maybe Dean would have stood beside me afterward and said I did the right thing. Outside, police cars flooded the parking lot. The automatic doors opened. Voices shouted. Dean looked past me. Then he reached into his pocket. I flinched. He pulled out a folded receipt. Not a weapon. Paper. He held it out. My hand shook as I took it. The text was already printed. He is standing behind you. I turned too late. A man in a gray hoodie grabbed me from the side. The same man from the prepaid card. Alive. Working with him. His arm locked around my shoulders. No dramatic struggle. No cinematic strength. Just weight. Breath. The blunt terror of another body deciding where yours will go. I drove my heel down onto his foot and screamed. The sound tore out of me. Ugly. Useful. He loosened. I dropped. The aisle exploded into movement. Police rushed in, shouting. Hands. Radios. The man in gray hit the floor. Dean did not run. He stood beneath the fluorescent lights with his hands raised, looking almost relieved. As if exposure was just another kind of attention. Later, they found the others. Not all at once. The woman in yellow in a short-term rental 2 towns over, sedated but alive. The teenage boy locked in the back office of an abandoned auto shop, dehydrated and terrified. 2 more from previous months. 1 from another store where Dean had worked under a different name. No ritual. No monster lair. Just logistics. Storage units. Burner phones. Fake rideshare accounts. Stolen customer data. Printed instructions delivered with the authority of a receipt. Dean's real name was not Dean Mercer. It was Daniel Reeve, former retail systems consultant, former missing persons volunteer, former boyfriend of a woman who had disappeared 3 years earlier after telling friends he always knew where she was. The news called him the receipt hacker. I hated that name. It made him sound clever. He was not clever. He was patient. And patience, when joined with entitlement, becomes a weapon. Theo's voice was traced to an actor whose podcast had been scraped online. The dating profile was fake. The messages were generated from my replies, my public posts, my work schedule, my old grief. Dean had watched me for weeks through the cameras he claimed to maintain. He knew when I cried in the stockroom. He knew what coffee I drank. He knew Jonah's name from an old court filing. He knew my childhood nickname from a tagged birthday post I had forgotten existed. Nothing was magic. That made it worse. Magic would have meant the world had broken. This meant the world was working exactly as designed. Data moving. Systems trusting systems. Lonely people answering kind voices in the dark. I left Halden Mart before sunrise. Rain had stopped. The parking lot smelled of wet asphalt and petrol. Police tape fluttered near the loading bay. The pharmacy sign still reflected red in the puddles. Inside the store, the receipt printer sat silent at register 2. Small, plastic, harmless. I stood looking at it for a long time. Then it clicked. Once, an officer turned sharply. A final strip of paper emerged. Probably cued earlier. Probably harmless. Probably. No one touched it at first. Then the officer tore it free and read it. His face tightened. He would not show me, but I saw the words reflected backward in the dark glass behind him. Mara still answers when called by name. I moved apartments 3 weeks later. Changed my number. Deleted the dating apps. Closed old accounts. Scrubbed what I could. Kept what I needed. Now I work days in a library archive where receipts are rare and printers are watched by people who understand that machines are only as honest as the hands behind them. Sometimes rain taps the windows and I smell burnt coffee, freezer air, wet wool. Sometimes my phone buzzes late and my body remembers fear before my mind has facts. I am better, not untouched. Better is not the same as before. Before, I thought privacy meant hiding. Now I know privacy means choosing who gets to know enough to reach you. Trust is not a warm voice at 4 a.m. It is not a person who notices your pain and names it beautifully. Obsession can sound like care when it studies the language long enough. Control can wear the face of protection, and a warning is not always meant to save you. Sometimes it is a leash written in thermal ink. Sometimes it is proof that someone has learned your fear well enough to make it move. Story 5. The storm found me somewhere outside Millhaven, where the highway narrowed into 2 black lanes, and the trees leaned over the road like they were listening. Rain hammered the windshield. Not fell, hammered. The wipers dragged water from one side to the other, useless and exhausted, smearing headlights into long white wounds across the glass. My phone had been on 6% for the last 20 minutes. The charging cable had died somewhere after the state line. My gas light had been glowing since the last town. I was driving because I could not stay still. After the divorce, my apartment had become too quiet. The refrigerator hummed like a witness. The pipes clicked at night. My phone buzzed with messages I never opened, then stopped buzzing completely, which somehow felt worse. Evan used to call me dramatic. Not loudly. Never loudly. He spoke softly, which made people believe him. He could look at me crying across a kitchen table and say, "You're making this bigger than it is," in the same voice someone might use to calm a child. After 6 years, I had learned to question every reaction before I had it. So when I finally left him, I thought distance would help. A new city, a new job, a studio apartment above a cafe that played soft jazz until midnight. But loneliness followed me with patient feet. It sat beside me in traffic. It slept in the passenger seat. That night, it rode with me through rain and fog while my phone flickered at 1%. Then the engine coughed. Once. Twice. The dashboard lit up with symbols I did not understand. I coasted onto the shoulder, tires hissing over wet gravel, and stopped beneath a dead mile marker. The world outside was water and trees and dark. I tried the phone. No service. Then the screen went black. I laughed once. A small, ugly sound. Of course. For a while, I sat there listening to rain strike the roof. Fast. Relentless. The kind of rain that makes a car feel less like shelter and more like a box slowly sinking. Then through the fog ahead I saw it. Blue letters. White glow. A Walmart sign floating above the highway like a promise. I stared at it. It was set back behind a service road, partly hidden by trees. The parking lot lights were on. The building looked huge and clean and impossible, its sign burning bright against the rain. I had not seen an exit sign. No gas station. No town. Just the glow. I told myself I had missed it. I wanted to believe that. I took my coat from the back seat, held it over my head, and stepped into the storm. The walk felt longer than it should have. Rain soaked my shoes in seconds. Water ran under my collar. The empty parking lot reflected the store lights in long silver rectangles. No cars. No carts loose in the wind. No cigarette butts near the entrance. No gum stains on the pavement. Only light. Too much light. The automatic doors slid open before I reached them. Warm air breathed out. Dry. Chemical. Sweet with floor cleaner and plastic. I stepped inside. The doors closed behind me with a soft rubber kiss. At first, the store looked normal. Bright aisles. Blue signs. End caps stacked with paper towels and cereal boxes. Rows of polished floors reflecting fluorescent lights, so clearly it felt like walking over another store beneath me. But the silence was wrong. No shopping carts rattling. No children crying. No distant scanner beeps. No music. Only the hum of appliances. Refrigerators. Vending machines. Overhead lights. 1,000 small electrical throats. Then someone said, "Rough night." I turned. A man stood near the greeter station wearing a blue vest and a name tag that said Mason. He was maybe 40, clean-shaven, soft eyes, a calm face. The kind of face you trust because it seems to have practiced not frightening people. "You're soaked," he said. I looked down like I had forgotten. My car broke down. I figured. Something in that sentence touched the back of my neck. "You figured?" He smiled gently. "Storm like this. Nobody walks in after midnight unless something went wrong." After midnight. I checked the clock above customer service. 12:18. "I need a phone charger," I said. "And maybe to use a phone." "Of course." His voice was warm. Too warm for a stranger in an empty store. He pointed toward the electronics aisle. "Chargers are in section J12. Restrooms past pharmacy. Coffee machine still works if you need something hot." I hesitated. "You're open?" Mason's smile did not change. "Doors opened, didn't they?" I almost smiled back. That was how tired I was. The store swallowed sound as I walked. My wet shoes squeaked on the polished floor. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. In the freezer aisle, glass doors hummed softly, white fog blooming inside them. Everything was too orderly. Cereal boxes faced forward in perfect lines. Towels stacked like architecture. Every price tag straight. Every shelf full. No gaps. No human disorder. At electronics, I found the charger wall. Every hook held the same black cable. Same brand. Same length. Same price. No choices. I grabbed one and turned. Mason stood at the end of the aisle. I startled so hard the package slipped in my hand. "Sorry," he said. "Didn't mean to scare you. You're very quiet." "I hear that a lot." His eyes moved to the charger. "Wrong one." I looked down. "It's for my phone." "You use the older port," he said. I stared at him. "How would you know that?" His gaze flicked toward my hand. "You had the broken cable in your coat pocket." I looked. A white cable end was visible near my zipper. Reasonable. I told myself it made sense. He reached past me and took a different charger from the rack. His sleeve brushed mine. "Here," he said. "This one won't fail on you." That phrase stayed with me. "Won't fail on you." Like he knew people had. At the front, the checkout lanes were dark except for one. A cashier stood behind it. Young woman. Pale face. Blue vest. Hair pulled tight. Her name tag said Cora. She watched me approach without blinking. Not once. Maybe her eyes were dry. Maybe I was overthinking. Mason placed the charger on the belt for me, though I was holding it. Kara scanned it. Beep. The sound cracked through the store. Then she reached below the counter and scanned something else. Beep. I looked down. It was a missing person flyer. Laminated. Slightly bent at one corner. My face stared up from it. Not a bad photo. That made it worse. It was a picture from my sister's wedding 3 years ago. I was smiling at something off camera. Hair pinned badly. Eyes brighter than they had been in a long time. Above it, in black letters, "Missing Nora Vale." Below, "Last seen near Millhaven Highway during severe storm." My mouth went dry. "That's not mine," I said. Kara looked at the flyer, then at me. Her face remained blank. It rang up with your item. That doesn't make sense. Mason took the flyer gently, like it was fragile. His expression changed. Concern. Recognition. Something rehearsed as compassion. Nora, he said quietly. I stepped back. How do you know my name? He looked down at the flyer. Your name is here. I could hear my breathing now. Thin. Too fast. Outside, rain struck the glass entrance in silver sheets. I didn't give anyone that photo. Mason folded the flyer once. A clean crease through my face. Maybe someone is looking for you. No one knows I'm here. His eyes softened. Are you sure? It was the exact question Evan used to ask when he wanted to make uncertainty bloom inside me. Are you sure? 2 words. A crowbar under memory. My phone was dead in my pocket. My car was somewhere beyond the rain. The store lights hummed. I grabbed the charger and walked toward the entrance. The doors did not open. I stood close enough for the sensor. Nothing. I waved my hand. Nothing. Behind me, Mason said. Storms interfere with the doors sometimes. I turned. He was still by the register. Kara was still looking at me. No blink. No movement. I'll open them manually, I said. There's an emergency exit by garden, Mason replied. But I wouldn't go that way. Why? He smiled sadly. People get turned around. I did not answer. I walked fast. Past seasonal decor. Past folded clothes. Past baby supplies where plastic toys grinned from perfect boxes. The store felt larger than before. I followed signs toward Garden Center, but each aisle ended somewhere wrong. Sporting goods. Automotive. Home office. Every overhead sign seemed to shift when I looked away. Not magically. No. Physically. They were mounted on tracks. I saw one move. Just a few inches. A soft mechanical slide above the aisle. My fear sharpened. This was not confusion. This was design. My phone buzzed. Impossible. Dead phones do not buzz. I pulled it out. Black screen. But the buzzing continued. From the shelf beside me, behind a row of boxed desk lamps, a cheap burner phone vibrated against the metal. I picked it up. Unknown caller. I answered without thinking. At first, only breathing, then footsteps, wet shoes on tile, then my own voice. Soft, tired. I don't know if I can trust myself anymore. I had said that in a voice note to my therapist after leaving Evan. My private voice, my midnight voice. The call ended. I dropped the phone. It kept buzzing on the floor. Again, again, again. From somewhere overhead, the intercom clicked. Static breathed through the speakers. Then a woman's voice said, calm and bright, customer assistance needed for Nora Vale in aisle 12. My name traveled across the empty store. Aisle 12, aisle 12, aisle 12. I started running. The polished floor threw my reflection back at me, stretched and pale under fluorescent light. My wet coat slapped my legs. Somewhere behind me, footsteps followed. Not fast. Not rushing. Certain. I ducked into a clothing section and crouched behind a rack of winter coats. The store hummed. The rain whispered against the high windows. My own breathing sounded too loud. Then Mason's voice came from the next aisle. You don't have to hide. Soft. Patient. We know what fear does to you, Nora. I pressed a hand over my mouth. You apologize when you're cornered, he continued. You explain before anyone accuses you. You make yourself smaller around calm men. My eyes burned. He was reading me from somewhere. Not guessing. Reading. You like the cafe on Mercer, he said. The one below your apartment. You sat by the window. You ordered black coffee and never drank more than half. I closed my eyes. Neon. Rain. Soft jazz. A little table where I had tried to become a person again. You posted one photo there, he said. Window reflection gave us the street sign. Your old email gave us the rest. Us. I stood and moved silently through the coats. At the end of the aisle, I saw a door marked employees only. It was slightly open. Inside was darkness. I went in anyway. The back corridor smelled different. Dust. Damp drywall. Old metal. Not like an open store. like a building pretending to be alive. Fluorescent bulbs flickered overhead. The floor was concrete. Cardboard boxes lined the walls, but many were empty. Some shelves were only facades, front-facing products glued to panels. I found a break room. There was no food, no fridge, no employee lockers filled with coats. Only tables covered with laptops, cameras, printed maps, and plastic bins full of IDs. Driver's licenses, credit cards, social security cards, phones in labeled bags. A wall held photographs. Dozens of people. At gas pumps, in motel lobbies, at roadside diners, sleeping in cars, walking through rain toward the glowing store. Some photos were crossed out in red marker. Not with blood, just ink. That made it worse. Administrative cruelty. On one table lay a folder with my name. Nora Vale, acquisition window. High stress / post-divorce / limited contact network. My hands shook as I opened it. Screenshots of my dating app profile, my Instagram, my therapy appointment reminders from my email, a scan of my temporary lease, photos of my car at rest stops, a transcript of a call with my sister, a note, subject likely to self-question under contradiction. Prior partner used memory invalidation. Use calm male authority. I felt something inside me go quiet. Not fear, recognition. They had chosen the exact shape of the trap. Not just for anyone. For me. A floorboard creaked behind me. I turned. Kara stood in the doorway. Still. Pale. She looked younger up close. Maybe 20. Maybe frightened. "Please don't scream," she said. I backed away. "Who are you?" "Kara. Your real name." Her face twitched. "I don't use it anymore." I looked at the wall of photographs. "What is this place?" She glanced toward the corridor, then stepped in and shut the door almost completely. It used to be a Walmart, closed 15 years ago. The lights, generators, solar backup. The sign was repaired. The shelves, staged. Why? Her eyes filled, but no tears fell. To make people feel like they found help. Outside the break room, Mason's voice called softly, "Kara." She flinched. Not an employee, a captive, or something close to it. "What happened 15 years ago?" I whispered. Kara swallowed. People disappeared during a flood. The official story was evacuation confusion. The store was abandoned after lawsuits. Then someone realized abandoned places make good doors. Doors to what? "New lives," she said. "For people who can afford them." My stomach turned. "They steal identities." "Not just steal," she said. "Replace. Bank records, voice models, social accounts, emergency contacts. Sometimes they make it look like you left voluntarily. Sometimes like you were never here. And the missing flyer? A pressure test. They watch how fast you panic, how much you argue for reality." Mason knocked once on the door. Gentle. "Kara." Her lips trembled. "He'll make me call you unstable if they catch you," she whispered. "There are cameras, audio edits. They already have your voice." I thought of the burner phone. My own words, my own fear, turned into rope. Kara reached under the table and pressed something into my hand. A car key fob. Not mine. Delivery van. Backloading dock. Gate sticks. Push hard. "Come with me." She gave a small smile. It looked practiced. Sad. I tried once. That was all she said. Then she opened the door and screamed. Not in terror. In performance. "She's in here." I ran. Mason came around the corner as I slammed through a side door into the warehouse space. His calm broke for the first time. "Nora," he called. "Think carefully." I kept moving. Pallets formed narrow corridors. Plastic-wrapped boxes rose like walls. Rain drummed on the metal roof above, loud enough to cover my footsteps. My pocket buzzed. A second burner phone had been slipped into my coat. I threw it away. It rang from the floor. Then another phone rang ahead. Then another. The warehouse filled with buzzing. Like insects. Like thoughts. The intercom clicked again. My voice spoke overhead. I'm not safe with myself. Then Mason's voice. Nora, everyone is trying to help you. Then Evan's voice. My ex-husband. Or a clone of him. Soft. Disappointed. She gets confused when she's upset. I stopped for half a second. That was almost enough. Old training. Old shame. The body remembering obedience. Then I saw the loading dock door. Red exit sign above it. Real or staged. I ran toward it. A man stepped from behind a pallet. Not Mason. Older. Gray hair. Long coat. No vest. He looked like a therapist from a luxury clinic. Or a lawyer. Or a father who had learned to perform sadness. Nora, he said, you've had a very difficult night. I gripped the key fob so hard it cut my palm. Move. I'm Dr. Lowell. Mason has a clumsy way of handling distressed guests. I apologize. Guests. I almost laughed. You mean victims? He looked disappointed, not offended. Victimhood can become an identity if reinforced. There it was. The elegant language. The clean cruelty. You're stealing people. We recover abandoned identities and redistribute them. You lure stranded travelers. We select people already disappearing. Socially isolated. Financially vulnerable. Emotionally unstable. People the world won't look for quickly. His eyes softened. You were already halfway gone. The sentence struck deeper than I wanted it to. Because loneliness makes disappearance feel plausible. Because part of me had wondered whether anyone would notice if the storm took me. Dr. Lowell stepped closer. We can give you quiet. No divorce. No debt. No history. A controlled exit from a life that has hurt you. Behind him, Mason appeared. Silent. Waiting. I heard rain. Generators. Fluorescent hum. My own breath. Then distant sirens. Real sirens. Faint, but approaching. Dr. Lowell's face changed. Only slightly. Kara had done something. Or maybe I had. My dead phone, when briefly powered at checkout. My sister tracking my location. My car abandoned on the shoulder. Something had reached the outside. I lifted the folder I still held from the break room. You left records. He smiled. Records are not evidence if the witness is unreliable. Mason moved toward me. I stepped back and slammed my elbow into the fire alarm. For 1 second, nothing. Then the building screamed. Red lights flashed across the warehouse. Sprinklers burst overhead, cold water falling in hard silver lines. The dock door unlocked. Not fully. Enough. I shoved it open and ran into the storm. The delivery van sat crooked near the back fence. I pressed the key fob. Lights flashed. Behind me, Mason shouted my name. Not calm now. Not kind. I climbed in, locked the doors, and started the engine. The gate at the end of the service road was chained, but not closed all the way. I drove into it. Once. Twice. Metal bent with a scream. The van lurched onto the wet road as police lights cut through the trees ahead. Red. Blue. Rain. Fog. For a moment, everything blurred into color. Then officers surrounded the van, shouting commands I barely understood. I opened the door with both hands raised. I'm Nora Vale, I said. Then I said it again, because saying my name felt like holding onto the edge of myself. They found the store exactly as I described. Not open. Never open. A dead Walmart dressed in light. Generators in the back. Shelves staged near the front. Moving signs mounted on tracks. Sound systems in the ceiling. Burner phones hidden in aisles. Voice cloning software running on laptops. Files on dozens of travelers. Some recent. Some years old. Some identities already sold. Kara testified. So did others. People who had been employees, prisoners, accomplices, survivors. The lines were not always clean. Fear makes people do things they later cannot fit into language. Dr. Lowell was not a doctor anymore. His license had been revoked years before. Mason's name was not Mason. It was Aaron Pike, former private investigator, former missing persons consultant. That almost broke me. He had once been paid to find people. Then he learned how to make them vanish. Weeks later, When I returned with police to identify my belongings, the sign was dark. In daylight, the building looked ordinary. Ugly, abandoned, bird droppings on the roof, weeds through the pavement, plywood over half the windows. No magic, no impossible aisles, just architecture, wires, locks, screens, people. That was the worst part. The world does not need monsters to become monstrous. It only needs systems built by patient hands. I moved after that, not far, just somewhere with neighbors who argued too loudly and a grocery store that closed at 10 and looked closed when it was closed. My new apartment has uneven floors. The cafe downstairs burns coffee. A man across the street plays trumpet badly at night. Sometimes rain still turns the city silver, and neon reflections crawl across my ceiling like warnings. When my phone buzzes after midnight, I still feel my body leave me for 1 second. When automatic doors slide open, I pause. When someone kind knows too much, I step back. I used to think safety meant being rescued. Now I know rescue can be a costume, a blue vest, a soft voice, a glowing sign in the rain. Trust is not a door opening when you are desperate. Trust is what happens after you ask why it opened. Privacy is not paranoia. It is the border between being known and being owned. An identity is more fragile than we admit. A name, a photo, a voice, a handful of habits. Enough pieces for someone to build a version of you that can be blamed, erased, or sold. I survived because one frightened girl behind a checkout counter chose to become human at the right moment. Because a fire alarm still worked in a dead building. Because some part of me, buried under years of being doubted, finally believed what it saw. That is what I carry now. Not courage, not closure, a quieter knowledge that sometimes the most dangerous place in the storm is not the dark highway. It is the bright store that opens for you, the clean floor, the perfect shelves, the smiling stranger who says your name before you offer it, and the soft, terrible relief of thinking for 1 weak second that someone has finally come to help.